Hey CEO, should we run LinkedIn ads? I don't care. Let me just go and check the customer service email because, that we might have gotten an email and, the customer service guy is not back till tomorrow. It's not just stupid, it's holding the company back. They're struggling. You're sitting down with sales manager and you're like, okay, let's try this, let's try this, let's try this. Shut up. Most founders in most stages, the most common complaints is they work too much and they work in the
Okay.
business, not on the business. And the biggest challenge in many companies is lack of good delegation. Most people spend at least 3 years getting to a workable, good, consistent income.
What's the first uncomfortable move they need to do, in your opinion?
Look at where you suck and invest in improving it.
We have been talking a lot today about delegation, about getting yourself out of the weeds so your agency can actually scale. And link building is one of those areas where founders stay stuck the longest. Waiting sites, negotiating placements, tracking everything in spreadsheets. It is hours you don't have. That's exactly the problem INSERT.LINK was built to solve. Two ways to use it. If you want control, use the platform to buy links efficiently. Everything in one place, no chaos. If you want to fully delegate, they offer managed link building done for you, end to end. White label so it goes out under your brand. Either way, you stop being the bottleneck in your own link building. So go to INSERT.LINK and use promo code INSERTPodcast1 to get $50 added to your first deposit. INSERT.LINK, promo code INSERTPodcast1. So now back to Matt. Growing SEO agency doesn't feel like losing control at first because the revenue grows, the team expands, but there is a moment that decisions start to slow down. And that's the topic of our today's discussion. The hidden bottleneck stopping SEO agencies from scaling. I'm Diana. I am today's host of the INSERT.LINK podcast, and I'm also a marketing strategy lead at Iris AI. And today I'm joined with amazing professional Matt Singers, who is co-founder, management consultant, and also host. But today he's our special guest. Matt, before starting discussing the podcast, I'm super curious to learn from you a lot today. But can you please tell more about yourself, your expertise to our audience so we get to know you better?
Yeah, for sure. So, as you said, my name is Matt Singers, and I am very passionate about management and leadership and amazing humans. So, I've spent a good part of the last sort of 25, 26 years in working with people and so on. Yeah, generally very excited about management, and that's what I've been the last 12 years. I've had a coaching business focused a lot on helping people become better leaders, better managers, hiring better people, how to hire the right people, how to work with people, how to get the most out of people. So that's been my big passion. Besides that, I love building companies. I love building teams. I love both helping, but also seeing people grow and develop and so on. And yeah, that's the stuff I love. Also run, obviously, the best SEO conference in the world, which is called SEO Mastery Summit in
Yeah.
Vietnam. And we are kicking off on March the 10th again. So always excited to have a lot of amazing people in Vietnam as well.
Oh, perfect. Good luck for the event. I'm looking forward to read about it on your LinkedIn. So we can start today's discussion actually from the first question. When you hear the agency owners say they're losing control, what do they usually mean from your experience?
It can be a couple of things. Often,
Mm-hmm.
what happens is when you're growing a business, that there's typically sort of three called steps people go through, right? So when you start a company and you hire the first people from about 0 to 8, 9, 10, you can kind of have these people all report to you. And every time you hire someone, it's a little more work on your plate, but you also get more productivity. So it's typically a net plus. However, when you get to 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people, one, it becomes overwhelming. And two, if you haven't yet got managers in there yet, uh, you're like spider in the middle. Everyone's reporting to you. All the stuff comes back and forth to you because in most cases you haven't learned how to manage yet. So you're kind of still approving everything. You're responsible for everything. And if you get sick for a month, your business often tanks, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the first step. Now, the second step is from that 8, 9, 10 people up until around 30. So that's typically when you start hiring a couple of other managers, that you have a layer in between you. You typically still know most of the people that work in the company, but you're managing through other people. And that's sort of the second step of business. And the third step typically comes around 50 to 60 people. And that is when you start managing through multiple layers of people. Because managing through multiple layers of people fundamentally mean that the message you
Yeah,
say at the top is interpreted completely different at the bottom. Because it's a bit like the game of telephone, where you
of
say
course. Yeah.
something to someone and they say it to someone else.
Yeah.
And so that those are typically the three steps where businesses struggle. And most companies struggle in all three steps if they don't have some solid sort of leadership background already or management background.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there are people who have that background starting companies, but for many, many businesses, it's a huge advantage having some support, both breaking through those different barriers, but fundamentally learning how to lead and manage effectively.
And I believe it's different concern in each stage that you grow into.
Yeah.
And when you notice like the founders or the owners of the agencies, what kind of complaints they have in each stage? Like what are their three complaints, let's say, for each stage?
For most founders in most stages, the most common complaints is they work too much and they work in the
Okay.
business, not on the business, right? There's this very common saying that, people don't want to work in the business, they want to work on the business. And that's correct. The problem most people have is they don't know how to change it. So they
Yeah.
think it's just a question of freeing up some time or something, but fundamentally it's a big mix of mindset and
Mm-hmm.
mindset processes and really how you effectively get the most out of your people and really how you help them take ownership. Because what happens in most businesses and the biggest challenge in many companies is lack of good delegation. And the
Mm-hmm.
biggest challenge is most people are delegating tasks. They're not delegating ownership and responsibility. And
That's
because of
so good
that,
said.
yeah,
Yeah.
because of that, when you're not delegating responsibility, if you're always the bottleneck everywhere, you're
Yeah.
always the bottleneck. And no matter how much you delegate, if you're always the bottleneck, you're slowing the company down, right? So when you're not delegating responsibility, you are forcefully holding back both the growth of your company, but more so the growth of your staff, right?
That's very well said. I also noticed that from my own experience, and also delegation is always like a very important skill. I believe whenever you are becoming already in a manager position, it's like something that you need to practically and from your experience kind of develop. So I fully agree with this. One thing I wanted to notice, because you are mentioning these stages with number of people, do you also notice if at what revenue stage usually SEO agency owners most often start feeling this? Is it like 500Ks? Is it more than 1 million? Is it correlated in a way?
It's often not so tightly correlated to revenue because
Mm-hmm.
the challenge is often around the management of the staff more than anything. And the thing is, some people are running companies where they charge client 1K a month retainer, and
Mm-hmm.
some people are running companies where they're charging 10 to 100K a month, right? So it's totally different businesses and so on. So it's generally not particularly closely related to the revenue or the company sort of financial size. It is way more connected to the number of people that they're trying to manage.
Okay, that totally makes sense. And I came across to your post actually on LinkedIn. You wrote about founders who stall because everything still runs through them, and that's kind of connected to whatever you shared just before. At what moment do you think owners' involvement stop helping and start slowing things more down, and where they need to be more cautious about this?
When you hire the first staff member, is typically when most owners start holding back the company. So um, as I said, like you can manage a few people and get some more
Mm-hmm.
productivity and efficiency in there. I love growing companies, and I love growing companies fast. And the way you do
Mm-hmm.
it is very simple. You hire generally good people, and you give
Mm-hmm.
them ownership. Um, every single one of your listeners, yourself included, you're here today because someone somewhere trusted you, right? So all of these business owners, all of these agency owners, at some point, someone trusted them. They might have had a job where someone was like, "Hey, figure this thing out." They
Yeah.
might go straight from school or whatever into entrepreneurship, and someone was like,
Mm-hmm.
"Okay, I trust you enough to give you some money to try and do something for me," right? So at some point, someone trusted you, and the problem is people don't pay that forward. The
Mm-hmm.
problem is you don't trust your staff. They're never going to grow and develop the way you want. And sometimes it can feel like, oh, but I want to go fast right now. And if I get someone else to give ownership to someone else, it might go a little bit slow. But this is one of those one step back and four step forward kind of thing, right? Because if you grow your staff, like you can do a lot of things as one person, and particularly now with AI, but you can do
Mm-hmm.
a lot more things if you bring in smart people around you and let them own stuff, right? That's the
I think
essence.
this trust component is really connected to also micromanagement part that I noticed that some leaders will do, where then that they bring some people they really think they trust them. However, when it comes like more practical things, they really want to micromanage them to make sure that everything is done in the way that they think are right. How should when founders like notice that they're micromanaging and kind of losing this trust towards their employees, their staff members, what they need to do to control themselves actually?
Yeah, so micromanagement is generally not a conscious habit. So it is often
Mm-hmm.
tied to natural behavior. So people micromanage, again, they don't do it out of bad intent.
Mm-hmm.
They do it because that is how they think. They think in details, and that happens a lot in SEO, right? There's a lot of very detail-oriented people in the field of SEO. So when you're very detail oriented, you think in tasks, you think in steps, and you're trying to get people to repeat those steps and repeat those tasks. And the problem is, one, that's not how you learn and grow, and that's not how
Yeah.
other people learn and grow, right? So because they're thinking in tasks, they're like, okay, what do I have to do? Oh, I have this task I need to do. Let me ask Liana if she can help.
Mm-hmm.
They're thinking about task, right? The right thing to do is take the step back, look at
Mm-hmm.
the and say, what are the areas we have? Okay, we have marketing. Am I the right person to own marketing right now? Yes or no? If not,
Mm-hmm.
who do we have in the team that needs to own it? And the way you own things is very simple. It's not a question of being responsible for task. It is a question of being responsible for an output. So let's use this amazing podcast as a great example, right? So if your
Mm-hmm.
bosses are doing a great job, they have given you the responsibility to grow a podcast and basically build a podcast where you interview certain relevant people. And afterwards, you help grow the audience and the listeners and so on. And your goal should be in terms of how many people or how much visibility are you
Mm-hmm.
generating, right? So it's easy to say you should follow the process and publish one episode per week. But you can publish one episode per week and have zero listeners, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't help the company very much. And this is the problem. When people are just focused on the process instead of the outcome, the people who are supposed to own it isn't tied into it because no matter what they do, it's okay as long as they follow the process. But you want people to be tied in to an outcome because if they're tied into an outcome, they start thinking, oh, what can we
Yeah.
do better? How can we improve the process, right? So if you're a business owner and you have your staff
Mm.
never suggest how they can do things better, it's typically because you haven't given them ownership, right? So they
Mm-hmm.
don't feel they own the process. They don't feel they're responsible for the outcome, right? And
Yeah.
that is the biggest driver for micromanagement?
Just to be divert from the topic, actually, from my experience, I'm using right now Cloud a lot in my personal work. And then they released, maybe you heard, Cloud Skills, which is basically kind of putting your processes, each steps that you are doing, and automating them. And then that actually also helps me, as in like a management role, in a leadership role, to have more focus on the outcomes. So I totally agree with you, especially with AI coming and supporting us as well in this. The outcome is becoming more and more important. And then also that is required from any employee or staff member as well. Like a kind of put the process, of course, follow the process, but think bigger than the process, think higher level and see bigger picture. So that's why it was an interesting correlation for me, because I'm right now working a lot with this skill section. I'm trying to put all these processes step by step after each other. But slowly, like building upon, do you think there is like a healthy percentage of founders should be involved in kind of decision making in SEO agencies? Is there like a healthy percentage for you?
They should make all the decisions at their level, which
Mm-hmm.
should be very few. So again, the problem is when you're the one making decisions, you're the bottleneck. And it's a
Mm-hmm.
sign that you haven't empowered your team and you haven't given them ownership of their goals. So if you have people down in an organization that consistently is coming to you and asking for permission or asking what should I do here, I'm not saying there's no situations, but for example,
Mm-hmm.
if you're a marketing manager, well, ideal that marketing manager have a budget. And it is their responsibility to spend the budget or use the budget to get the outcome they want, right? Or that they
Exactly.
decide, right? Now, if they go to the CEO and says, "Hey, CEO, should we run LinkedIn ads?" I would
Mm-hmm.
look at the marketing manager and say, "I don't care how you get to your results as long as you
Yeah.
don't go over budget and deliver what you have committed to deliver." Um, so again, is there things? Yes. Like if you're a marketing person and you're doing
Mm-hmm.
something crazy wild and you're like, oh, this could maybe hurt the brand, I'll just check in and
Mm-hmm.
check this is okay. Fair enough, right? But general CEOs or high level leaders should make the decision at their level. So if you are a CEO, if you are a business owner, your focus is around the overall focus of the business. So strategy,
Mm-hmm.
vision, ideal customers, like the high level stuff, right? It's not about, oh, this customer want this thing or this customer want that thing or, oh, let me do this strategy for a customer. That's not business owner work, right?
That's super true, actually, and that also will help them not to be too overwhelmed if they focus on their key priorities and their key decision making parts where they are good at as well, because they are good at overseeing the whole business.
The big challenge and where a lot of people go wrong is
Hmm.
they see people like Elon Musk or Alex Hormozy who is working these 12-hour, 16-hour days and hustling, and they're like, oh, I just need to work 12, 16 hours and I'll be successful. The challenge is that when you look at Alex or when you look at Elon working, they're doing the right stuff, right?
Hmm.
Most human beings are way more effective and get way higher results from working 8 hours a day or even 6 hours a day than they do working 12 or 14. Like that is reality. All studies show it, right? Most human beings are not capable of doing good decisions and doing the right things 10, 12 hours a day. They're not, right?
Hmm.
So the fundamental challenge is and when people do it, they end up doing a lot of stuff they shouldn't be doing just to feel good about themselves. So the
Yeah.
thing is, a lot of people they're doing a lot of stuff. They're like, oh yeah, I've worked 12 hours. I'm so good. I'm
Hmm.
working hard. I'm feeling like I'm doing the right stuff. Oh, let me just go and check the customer service email because that we might have gotten an email and the customer service guy is not back till tomorrow, and they're doing all this stuff, which is not just stupid. It's holding the company back that they do it, right?
Yeah,
So
they need to have a filtering as well. And going to more questions related to fear, because this is an interesting section we decided with INSERT.LINK team to put. What are agency owners really afraid of when they hold on to control? What's from your experience, looks like?
actually, most of them are not afraid. They just don't know any better. Um,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the time, we tell ourselves it is fear when we know
Mm-hmm.
what to do and we are uncomfortable doing it. But most of the time, it's really just a lack of skill, right? So, as human beings, this is the only thing that holds us back, right? For all human beings, our brains are the only thing holding us back every day of the week. Everyone else, right? Even the smartest and the best human beings, we are only limited by our brain. So, if you want to be better, it is typically a question of knowing what to do and how to do it, right? The biggest
Mm-hmm.
issue I see with most founders and most business owners is in the SEO world is they know so much SEO and they're spending time trying to learn 1% more. Whereas they know a little bit of business, they know a little bit of leadership, but if they spend an hour or two on leadership or spend an hour or two on business, they will learn and improve so much more than by getting another tiny portion of a percent, uh, some new trick or some new hack or some new whatever in the world of SEO, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
so the essence really for a business owner is making up the choice. So many people come to me and they're like, I don't really want to manage people. I just want to do SEO. And I'm like, totally okay. What's your goal? Right? If your
Mm-hmm.
goal is to make money, in most cases, you want to be a business owner. If you just want to do SEO, have a comfortable job, and make a little bit of money every month, do that. Right? You
Or
can
just bring someone to actually, be the organizer, let's say the CEO of the company, while you are doing still what you want.
you can, and
Mm-hmm.
it's easier in larger companies. The biggest challenge is when you're in a
Mm-hmm.
small company. First of all, you often don't have the resources to pay for a
That's
great CEO. And two is that in smaller businesses, there is often a lot of this basic stuff that's like, what are we selling? Who are we selling to? Who's our ideal customers? There's a lot of that
true.
stuff that's not necessarily the expertise of a, let's call that professional CEO, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, now, sometimes you have people around you that can. That's definitely possible, right? But it is a lot easier in a bigger company. In smaller companies, you often get the most value if you, as the founder, is spearheading the company because you have a certain energy, you have a certain
Yeah.
passion for it because it's your business. And sometimes by paying someone to do it, it's a little bit if you have a machine, if everything is working,
Mm-hmm.
if you have good operation and it runs,
Mm-hmm.
you have good marketing and it runs, you have a good sales team and it runs. Yes, you can put a CEO in to make sure it keeps running. But when you're trying to figure out where to do marketing, when you're trying to figure out how to do sales, or when you're trying to optimize your delivery process, a
Mm-hmm.
CEO that is not very, very sort of heavily tied into the business already is often going to have a really hard time doing that successfully.
I see. Because a lot of times I read, the number one skill that all the founders need to learn is selling. But also, I see, because of having a conversation with different founders, that they don't like doing it. They are forcing themselves doing it, but sometimes it's not working for them. And I see, for example, your point fully, like for smaller companies, it's harder to bring SEO specialists as well, because also you are in the stage that you are kind of shaping the culture of the company, understanding your market and validating it. However, in the bigger companies, it's easier. But I also see that sometimes founders are really good at something. Their strength relies on, let's say, SEO and technical expertise, while they lack expertise with the sales, which is like a key thing of growing your company. In that case, what's your advice to this type of founders?
So here's the thing.
Mhm.
if you're good at SEO, you can typically hire someone else who's very good at SEO for 3, 4, 5 grand a month to do the SEO, right? Again, because it's your company, you're gonna have a really hard time. Like most people who go and hire a marketing person to figure out marketing or go and hire a sales guy to figure out sales, they're gonna have a really, really, really hard time. And I would say the success rate is probably 5% if even, right? So
Interesting.
does it mean you need to do it forever? No. But as a business owner or as a founder, if you don't understand what is it we're selling, and there's a big problem is most don't, right? And most people say, we do
Yeah.
SEO, so if you do e-com or local or anything SEO, come to us, right? And the thing is, that's not a business because SEO like that is not repeatable, it's not scalable, it's not easy to execute on. Or it's difficult to build a repeatable system to execute on consistently and delivering good results, right? So you generally want to build up a repeatable system. And this is again the problem with ICP for many businesses. Most people spend at least 3 years getting to a workable, good, consistent income. And that's typically because when they start, they say all customers
Yeah.
come our way. They get a bunch of different customers. They're struggling to fulfill and they're figuring things out. And then at some point, they're like, oh, wait a minute. I got these three, let's say, real estate customers. They're all paying on time. We like them. We can fulfill the work. Let's just focus more on that. And that's when the business grows, right? So you can
Yeah.
circumvent, you can shortcut that process a lot if you, in the early days, go and really niche down and target an ICP like a very specific market straight away, right? So if you say
Fully,
straight
because
away, we only work with e-com stores who are running on Shopify, that's what we do. Because what happens is if you do that, you can much better build out your process flow, right? And there's one of the key things is organizations exist for the specialization of labor, right? And most SEOs, they can do the whole thing, and they're trying to duplicate themselves and trying to find someone else who can do the whole thing. But number one, it's hard, takes a long time, and it's expensive, and the person actually have no reason to work for you. They might as well go and do their own thing, right? Instead, what you want to do when you run an organization, you want to take the whole thing, the whole process, and you want to break it down into steps. And then you want to have people executing parts of those process steps. The reason you want to do that is one, it makes it way faster to hire and way faster to train people to be capable of doing a part of the process. Two, you get way faster, way better results. Because if you're just teaching someone how to do, let's say, outreach for links, or just teaching a person how to get the content written the right way, then it's a much faster learning curve. And what that does is enable you to grow and scale much faster. Because if you can if you can double your capacity and train people in 2 weeks, right, then you can effectively double your business in 2 weeks, right? But if it takes you 6 months to train up someone, you are going to have a very hard time growing really fast, right? The second thing is it also means that the people in your company are less critical. When you have a very senior person who's great, that makes it very difficult for the company if that person leaves, right? But if you
That's
build
true.
out the right systems and you break down the process, then you can do much more with less, not just less qualified people, but less trained people. And the whole thing is
Exactly.
when you're executing a solid process repeatedly, you know the results you should be getting, you know what you're looking for, and it's not a problem. Normally, the reason why people need experts and they need great SEOs is because they're always doing random stuff. They're not running a business, right? They're they're trying to run an agency. They're basically a freelancer trying to do more than a freelancer can do, which is do a lot of freelancer stuff at scale, right? And is it impossible to make a decent business out of it? No. Is it by far the hardest way to do it? Does it take way longer? And do you make a lot less money? Yes.
Definitely.
If
Yes.
your goal is to make more money in a shorter time, that's how you want to do it.
finding that repeatable, scalable engine, as we like to call also in marketing. The same like for all the processes or like a campaigns. So definitely like fully agree whatever you said, and I think this is very insightful for our audience to learn. One thing, Matt, I want to check with you. Actually, you recently wrote a post again about safe goals that are like decaf espresso. Love the metaphor. I would like you to explain to our audience what do you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of thoughts around goals in general.
Yeah.
Number one, again, our brain is our limiter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, most people don't set aggressive enough goals. And the problem is when they set goals, they don't put a plan behind it. Saying, I want to get to 10 million next year means nothing if you don't
Mm-hmm.
have a plan that says how you're going to get there, right? So what is the specific plan in steps, right? So if you're doing 5 million this year and you want to get to 10 million next year, you want to sit down and you want to work through with your organization and say, okay, sales guys, we want to double next year. How are we going to do it, right? And you could say, well, sell twice as much. In most cases, you're better doing a combined effort of how do we get more money out of existing people or sell
Mm-hmm.
more to the same people we already have? How do we increase our sales and so on? And, anywhere where we can, sell more to the same audience somehow, right? Um, so you make a plan for sales, then you go to marketing and say, marketing, we need 50% more leads next year. How are you going to deliver it? What's it going to cost, right? Then you
Mm-hmm.
go to operations, saying, operations, we're going to get twice as much work next year. How are you going to deliver it, right? And then you build a plan with each of the steps you expect. And correct, a plan is an estimate, right? So if you're saying, okay, we're gonna get 50% more leads by spending 20 grand a month on PPC. Now you might make
Mm-hmm.
some estimates that might not hold up. Sometimes the results are way better, sometimes they're way worse. The problem in most companies is not making the plan in the first place. Because if you don't make a plan, what most founders do or what most
Yeah.
managers do is they go to their team and says, okay, team, do more sales, do better, right? Let's grow. And you're like,
Yeah.
okay. And then sales magically do something that grows, and the
Yeah.
rest of the organization is not ready to handle it. So they're like, oh my God,
Mm-hmm.
we can't deliver, we can't deliver. And you're like, well, okay, then let's take care of operations. But then it takes a while for operations to get up to speed and so on, right? So the whole point
Mm-hmm.
of doing a plan is you're making a plan and you're executing it across the organization to make sure you have things like cash flow for it, right? Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
growth can be cash flow intensive. Sometimes you need to hire people ahead of the curve. Sometimes you need to invest in sales, marketing, systems, tools, whichever, right? So my core belief around goals is generally set bigger goals and work with the people responsible to make sure the plans of how to achieve those goals are being put in place.
Got you.
And
One
then
thing to clarify. Yeah.
sorry, and
Yeah.
then work with
Yeah.
each of the individuals, right? So again,
Mm-hmm.
one of the founder syndromes is when someone have a goal and they're struggling, you go and try and solve their problem. So sales is
Mm-hmm.
struggling. You're sitting down with sales manager and you're like, okay, let's try this, let's try this, let's try this. Shut up, right?
Yeah.
The sales manager's responsibility to deliver the goals. And if you're trying to tell them
Mm.
what to do, you're the reason they're failing, right?
Yeah,
So
that's true. In
yeah.
our actually company and also the companies I worked before, I'm super proud that they had an exercise that they were doing with different departments, aligning the kind of goals and plans together. Because what I see, the successful companies always work like a very tight with plans. Like the sales plan needs to be correlated and smoothly connected to the marketing plan. The same with the product team, same the growth team, and then like the successful goals achievements will happen. One thing to ask you, Matt, when like a founder puts a goal, let's say ambitious goal, you're saying like a big goal, how do they define for themselves what's a big goal and what? Because there are some studies done, the unachievable goals. Don't put unachievable goals for you, but try to still make it more realistic. What's your perspective on that?
fundamentally disagree. And the reason I do it is, again, our brain is the only thing holding us back. I disagree with Elon Musk on a lot of things,
Mm-hmm.
but I love when he goes in an interview and he's like, yeah, we're going to Mars. We'll be there by 2030, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the next morning he calls his team and he's like, hey, team, by the way, we need to be on Mars in 2030 because, well, I said we would be,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now, the reason why someone like Elon is able to deliver such out of the world results is because he asks for a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, the only thing that's holding us back is our brain. If we believe something is unrealistic, ain't gonna happen.
I'm gonna save that as a quote after this podcast. For me, anytime that I'm putting some goals, always to remember that, Matt. And I will put your name there. Yeah,
I mean, that's the
that's true.
fundamental is, as human beings, we have no idea what we're capable of.
Mm-hmm.
None, right? Like we are always underestimating ourselves. And every time you set a goal and you feel it's too high, look around in the world and ask yourself the question: have someone else ever done more, better, faster? And the answer, unless you're Elon Musk, probably the answer is always yes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the question is not, is it possible? The question is, what would it take, right? How can you do it? So it's always about the how. It is not a question of the if. Now, you might not be impatient enough to figure it out. You might
Mm-hmm.
not be determined enough to figure it out. That's possible, but that does not mean it is not possible.
That's that's very inspirational, motivational from your side, Matt. Going through actually a different category of topics, which is for us related to dependency. How do founders usually, do you think they unintentionally train their teams to be dependent on them?
No. Uh, Most founders are bad leaders because they don't know any better.
Mm-hmm.
Most bad leaders are bad leaders because they don't know any better. I have never met a human being who wakes up in the morning and says, wow, today I'm going to do a crap job. Never happens.
Amazing. Let's start.
You
Yeah,
don't,
yeah.
right?
Let's start.
So
Yeah.
if people are doing a bad job, like anyone, it's because they don't know how to do it better, right? Like that's the fundamental. If a
Mm-hmm.
leader is doing a bad job, it is because they don't know how to do it in a better way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now, the funny thing, in all organizations, there's training for the sales team, there's training for customer service, there's training for all these different roles. The second people promote people into leadership role, the training is typically non-existing. Um, Most companies who invest in good leadership training excel far ahead of everyone else. Because the problem is when you don't give your most important people the tools they need to do their job, you are failing them. Now, one thing is, as a leader, you haven't given yourself the tool to do your job well.
Mm-hmm.
That's not you. But if you're not giving your team the tool to do the job well, you're going to have a tough time, right? And you're like so many organizations I go into and work with, they have great people in the management roles. They have great people in those roles. They just don't know how to manage because they've never learned. And you can pick up things by doing it. If you've been in management for 10 years, even with no training, you've probably learned a few things.
Mm-hmm.
But the amount of improvement and the amount of growth that you can get by just like everything, if you have a sales guy who've never had sales training, like even if I've
Yeah.
been doing sales for 10 years, like you can improve so much in such a short span of time. Like the same, if you hire a trainer in the gym, like if you've been trying yourself to go to the gym for 5 years, and you might feel, oh, I've done this for 5 years, I know what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
You get a professional trainer come in and look at you, and he's like, "Yep, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's
Yeah.
wrong. Don't do that." You know, yeah,
That's a different story. Yeah. Matt, how would you describe for you a good leader?
yeah. There's a couple aspects. So fundamentally, I would say a good leader is someone who delivers results consistently over, right? So there's some leaders who can deliver results short term by being an asshole. Now, honestly, those leaders are better than people who don't deliver results. Because in a business, everything's about results, right?
Faster and the speed and the results. Yeah.
Speed and result, but I mean, speed is results, right? So if you're doing faster, you're more likely to deliver your results, right? But business, companies, management, leadership, it's all about delivering results, right? Now, sometimes you can argue about the time frame. Sometimes it's delivering result in 1 year or 5 years, 10 years, right? It's not always about the short-term goal per se, right? But in most organizations, if you work in any larger corporate business, your core role as a leader, as a manager, is to deliver your goals. If you don't deliver your goals, you aren't going to be doing your job very long.
That's very nicely put, Mats. Going to a bit different topic, actually, coming back again to the SEO agency part. When do you think SEO agencies break between start having revenue between 300K and 1 million? What's the first internal system that you think breaks? Is it connected to delivery or hiring, leadership? What's from your perspective?
So again, for the money, it can be very dependent on where they are people-wise typically. So again, it's not a money thing in my experience. So I work with a few companies at the moment. Some of them is sitting about 5 million. Now, some of them have 20 staff and 5 million revenue, and some of them have hundreds of staff members. I think one 400 and sitting around 5 million in revenue, right? So, it really is not a numbers game, but typically most people that make it to 1 million, the benefit with making it past 1 million in revenue, typically that you have more resources to deploy. So it means you can generally afford to hire better people. You can generally afford to pay for better tools and systems. You can generally afford to pay for better training. And that's often a big differentiator. So the reason why companies who have already made it past 1 million, the reason why they often keep growing is because they have a financial flexibility, I would call it, to do investment differently, right? Now, I have had a couple of companies come to me making, actually one of them was doing 2 million and profit margin under 5%, right? That is difficult, right? You don't want to be in that spot, right? Growing just to grow, but not making profits from it. That's very risky because you end up with a lot of, you have a lot of staff typically. And if your profit margin is only 5%, if you suddenly lose a bunch of clients, you're in the red and you can go in a very bad spiral very quickly, right? So typically I advise for SEO agencies to try and aim to be at least a 25-30% profit margin. If you're below that, definitely let's talk, right? Because you can sometimes make investment, and if you see a lot of growth coming up, you can sometimes harm or cut down the profit slightly, but generally you want to be around 25-30% profit margin to be at a healthy level from an agency standpoint.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's coming to something that I'm very curious right now, actually, is related to AI. How are you using AI in your own processes? In both, maybe also in the management consulting side, both in your co-founding side, and also when you're hosting the conference. Like, are there any areas how you're using it? It will be curious to know. I will be curious to know, and also our audience will be definitely curious to know.
The real question is, am I human? No.
Okay.
I am today. No, how are we using
Today,
it?
yes. Tomorrow, no.
As much as we
Okay.
as much as we
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
A lot of people like, oh, I don't want to hire people, I want to fire people, I just want to do AI. there's not a right or wrong, but fundamentally, what I would say is that people enable you to do more. I see AI as a increasing growth potential. So what I see in the world right now is that some people are gonna take over. If you have a team of 30 people, instead of firing 10 of them, keep them all, but grow more, right? So what I see AI being is AI is gonna make us able to deliver way more, way faster, way better. And when you can deliver better results at a lower cost, you're very competitive. So the real question is, how do you go out and acquire more people so you need all of your staff, right? Because what I see is fewer company in many industries will end up being very, very large because they figure out the systems and the processes and they really scale them really quickly and really well. And those companies are gonna win big. The companies who are afraid of AI is going to be in a very difficult spot, right? So I look at AI just like a computer, it's a tool. Today, no one, well, I was about to say no one works without a computer. Most people need a laptop to do, or a computer to do their work, right? I look at AI the same. AI is a necessary tool that you want your staff to learn and become comfortable with so that they can deliver more, faster, and better.
Yeah, that's nicely put because essentially right now a lot of companies consider AI as a strategic thinker, strategic partner that can help their employees, accelerate and be more efficient in their work. But also I see and now from my own experience that as people are using more AI, the whether it's a content, stage, whether it's their own work, the key thing becomes, of course, the quality becomes higher, but the key thing becomes the differentiator because as now everyone are capable kind of learning also different skills and accelerating their own professional skills, the key is how you're being how you're standing out, how you're being different, and also for the companies as well, with their positioning, with their messaging. So that's the direction I see.
Yeah, great.
Matt's coming already to the closure of our today's podcast. First of all, thank you so much for spending this time with me. I learned from you a lot, and I'm definitely sure that the audience also grabbed some key factors to take away from the podcast. If someone is listening us right now, what kind of advice would you give them if their SEO agency, they are in between, let's say, 500 to 1 million revenue stage, and they feel stuck? What's the first uncomfortable move they need to do, in your opinion?
Look at where you suck and invest in improving it,
Mm.
right? So that could be systems, that could be processes, that could be leadership management, it could be SEO knowledge. As I said, you can often find people with really good knowledge who aren't that expensive. Just because you're an SEO, if you're serious about growing a large company, even though you're a good SEO yourself, if you want to grow a large company, hire other SEOs, right? Because your goal is not to be doing the SEO. And the longer you're doing the SEO, the longer you're slowing down the growth of the business.
Perfect. That's also very nicely put. And the last part, what's something do you think SEO agency owners rarely admit to themselves, but they need to be kind of cautious about?
Well, I think in general, most business owners waste a lot of time doing things they shouldn't be doing. And the real skill is learning delegation, right? It's like learning to execute effectively on delegation to get yourself out of doing even small stupid things is a game changer. Like it's the most important.
Perfect. Mates, thank you so much for joining us today at INSERT.LINK podcast. I had a very lovely time. Wishing you today an amazing day, and we'll already be in touch. If anyone from our audience is curious to connect with you, I believe they can connect you on LinkedIn, and maybe can ask you follow-up questions related to maybe going deeper some question we discussed today. But again, thank you so much for joining. I will just let you to say maybe a closing remark, anything you want to share maybe with our audience, and then we will close the podcast.
Yeah, generally, thank you for having me. I always love sharing, love helping people and so on. Always love to connect with people, so feel free to find me on social or anywhere. Mattsingers.com is a good way. Only person in the world with my name, so I'm easy to
You
find
have
and
a
contact.
very catchy name, definitely.
And no, I cannot sing.
Perfect. Yep, that's all. Have a lovely day, guys. Thanks for watching us.